Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcome to the Daily Drop-In Morning Show with the Teach Better team, where we are live every single morning, Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern. We are so excited to be able to bring you a really good conversation today. It is Thursday, March 3rd, and we have a lot in store. Obviously, our theme will continue this week. We're having conversations around looking at the data in front of us and actually taking action steps, which has been a really valuable dialogue this week. We also, of course, have good news articles and great holidays to celebrate. We've been celebrating a lot of that over the last week or so. We also have proposals open for the Teach Better Conference. We just announced our keynote, and we have a whole lot in store because Tom is here to talk shop with us. So we will be right back. And as we get started, please go fill up your coffee and let's get into a fabulous day. Hey everyone, good morning. Happy Thursday. Tom, I am so thrilled that you are here to talk shop bright and early with us, coming in from the West Coast. So it is a early morning.
It is indeed, but I tell you what, I'm all energized. I'm ready to roll. We talked earlier about going back to bed. I don't think I'll be able to. I think I'm going to be so hyped up. This will carry me through the day and then some.
That's the hope. That's the hope. No, I think this is a great way to start your day. I so appreciate it. And maybe not a nap, but maybe going to bed early later this afternoon. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan.
All right, I would love it. I do have to say to our network, I always love Daily Drop-In. I always love inviting on new guests. I always love being able to meet new people, whether I get to meet them for the first time or maybe I get to bring them to our network as people I've met. Tom, it is such an honor to bring you to our community. I am such a fan and advocate for the work that you do. And we only recently connected about a year ago. And I can honestly say that you've had a massive impact on my life. And I'm so excited to introduce you to our community. So if you wouldn't mind, if people don't know of the work that you're doing, do you mind introducing yourself, sharing a little bit about what you do in education?
For sure. Yeah, no, it's really interesting to be at this point. This is year 39 for me as an educator. And gosh, it seems to have gone by in a heartbeat. To be honest, I started off my education career. I just wanted to be the world's best chemistry and biology teacher. That was my goal. I wanted to be there. And, I had all these great visions of what I was going to be doing and so on. And I got to do it for 1 year. And at the end of that, they said, job's up. I said, what do you mean? You said I could stay. They said, yes, you can. We didn't say which job. How would you like to be our severe behavior teacher? Now imagine you're in a second year as a teacher. You have a wife and 3 children at home, and you think a job is a good thing to have. But the panic is you have done no training in special education and even less in behavior. So the balance tips in favor of taking the job. But I've got to tell you, talk about a life-altering moment early on in a career. I learned so much about teaching and learning by being with some of our neediest learners, right? I needed to change everything, almost had to unlearn what I had learned. But I got to tell you, talk about a hinge point in a career that early, because it really shaped everything that I've done since. Very early on in my career, my guiding light, my mantra became this: every student is a success story waiting to be told. And that's driven the entire career, every choice I've made. And I've had an opportunity to do just about any job you can think of in education, all the way up through being a school superintendent. And every one of them has been for learning. I've had a chance now to author or co-author 21 books. It's all been about learning. And everything, as I said, still driven by that same belief that every student's a success story waiting to be told. Relationships have been critical, right? You talk about, you and I meeting a year ago, and that changes again the course of, because now I've met somebody else who has another skill set and introduces me to a different group of people, and we get to feed off each other. And I think for me, that relationship component, not just with our students, but with our colleagues, with all the people we interact with, again, energizes me. I mean, I just hit my 61st birthday, but I don't feel it, right? In 39 years, I don't feel it. it's still so invigorating to be part of this, and I think that's what keeps me going.
Tom, I am so excited to dive into the work that you've done because while I am, constantly following you and the work that you're doing, I know that there's so much more that you give. You are such a generous educator. You're constantly thinking about not only learning, but how you can support others in learning. And I am such an advocate for your mindset and the way that you go about building relationships and fostering learning, because it is something that I think it's so in line with how Teach Better wants to continue to do its work as well. And I just love that this has been something that you've taken on for 39 years and 21 books. Holy moly.
Yeah, no, it's been great, as I said, and again, the work you've done, connecting people, this whole notion of getting people fired up to start the day. I mean, isn't that what we want? Don't we want everyone arriving just hyped up, like today is going to be the best day we've ever had, right? And I get it. Look, we're all human. We have our frailties. It's tough to be awesome every day, but that should be the objective, right? I don't want to wake up and choose misery because I know if I choose misery, I'll find it
Yes.
or it'll find me.
So I met you a year ago, truly almost exactly a year ago. It was late February. And I connected with you through Alex, who I connected through Greg, all these like great people, right? Educators who connect you with other educators. To add some context to our network here as everyone's waking up and saying good morning to our community. You actually are the one who introduced me to some of the great educators I've learned from this year. Mel and Deb from Influential She is one of my favorite podcasts now, and I'm an active listener. They're part of our podcast network that I met through you and Alex. And actually, Mickey Smith Jr., who our community loves. We have had him in a number of different ways, a part of the Teach Better community. He's a part of our speakers network. We are constantly celebrating finding your sound, which is all about what Mickey's all about. And our community just eats him up. And truly, you are the one who introduced me to him so we could bring him into our network. So, and there's been more than that. I mean, the connections are endless. I really appreciate you. And I think our community owes you a very special thank you for all that you've contributed thus far and will contribute. It's so exciting.
No, that's just great. And you mentioned some of the names, and yeah, that's it. This opportunity, as I said, there's still so much learning. I've got so much more learning to do. I have a daughter who's in her fifth year of teaching. I get to learn from her because she's doing some things that I never thought to do. Right. And
Mhm.
and so we can pick our each other's brains and share some ideas. You mentioned Greg Wolcott. Greg's been a great friend for 7 or 8 years now, and I've had the chance to go in and work with his district and see some things that are happening, and again
Yeah.
learn some more. Really and truly, when I think about the writing opportunities I've had, I gotta tell you, I think I ran out of my smarts halfway through the first book. Most of the stuff I write about now has been stuff I've learned from others, and sort of twist it around, get some other ideas, combine what I heard from Ray with what I heard from Greg, with what I heard from Susan, which what I heard from Bill, and all of a sudden it starts to make sense and builds
Mhm.
off of. And then people read it and they feed back to me, and it's like, wow, I hadn't thought of that. Maybe that's what we should be looking at next.
Oh, so powerful. If you ever make it to Greg's community again, he's right around where I live. So I want to make sure
Yes,
that I get to meet you someday in person. I'll add that to my bucket list. It'd be so
there we
fun to be
go.
able to buy you a cup of coffee. But tell me a little bit. We met during an event that I know also just happened. It was in its second year just recently. I'd love to put it in the back of our network's mind, our Teach Better family here, because I don't know when the third one is, but I will tell you that I'm recommending it to everybody in our network. It was such a powerful event. You guys are doing really, really good work sharing information, which I know is almost like just a side project for you because you have lots of stuff going on. But tell me a little bit about where this event came from. And then hopefully we're having a third year of it because our community is going to eat it up.
For sure. Yeah. No, a friend of mine, Alex Kajitani, former California Teacher of the Year. We had met each other at some previous events, similar to, a lot of our colleagues. We meet, we talk, we find out we have some connections. Alex and I stayed in touch. We kept thinking about what can we do differently. And so we came in on this notion of doing what we're calling our Saturday summits. And the Saturday Summit follows a format. We have seven presenters, seven, addresses given during the day. Each person only gets a half hour. So you really got to be on point. You really got to be on your message because in that half hour, we want you to leave some time for questions. So you're probably down to 20 minutes of content.
Yeah.
That's a big stretch for a lot of our colleagues to get their message across in 20 minutes. We have a couple of panels. That's what you served on last year. We had a social media panel where people got to hear about the brilliant work you're doing, this network, the Teach Better team, how that could add value to them. And we know a lot of people who listened that day started tuning in and becoming part of. So we do those. We've got 4 or 5 of them during the year. We just did the Education Speaker Summit, which was the one you were involved in.
Yeah.
The next big one we have is coming up in August. It's the New Teacher Summit, and it's geared all towards new teachers. We anticipate we're going to have over 1,000 members. National University has stepped up to say, hey, they will sponsor the event. As a result of that, we're making it free. I mean, I don't know how many things you can get for free, and you know the quality that will be on. So we're anticipating, 1,000 plus colleagues joining us. It's always on a Saturday because we know how busy people are. As much as we hate folks having to give up a Saturday, we've just found it's a challenge to get substitute teachers in during the week, etc. So the Saturday Summit, get them all hyped up, get them fired up, and turn, back to what can we do next?
The way you do events, it's worth a Saturday. I mean, truly, like the energy that comes, the collaboration that happens. I'd give up a Saturday. Can I, as a I've been in the field for about a decade. Can I come to the new teacher? Am I still considered a new teacher?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We've had a number of people say, "Hey, but can I?" Absolutely, because again, as I said, I'm a 39-year teacher. I know when I go to that, I'm going to learn from
I
the people
know.
that are presenting. I'm going to learn from some of these new colleagues who are going to throw out some things, and I'm going to think, "Wow, you're doing that? Never thought to do that." Right? So
Yeah,
I
I've
anticipate
officially
we'll get lots.
Yeah, I officially have decided everybody listening here, whether you're watching as we're streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, or LinkedIn, or if you're listening to us after the fact on Teach Better Talk podcast, we're all new teachers. I would love for us all to be a part of that. And the
Exactly.
education summit that I was a part of, that's to support educators that want to get into speaking at conferences,
Yes.
consulting with districts. I mean, a lot of our network finds a passion for wanting to get into that space. Friends, this was a incredible amount of information and knowledge to be able to enter into that type of community. So that's also, again, maybe next year, but another one to recommend.
Yeah, no, and we had people who found their voice in terms of writing. So we had a number of really cool part. We had people coming back from last year who said, "Hey, here's what I've done." 3 or 4 people had written their first books. People who dabbled in this whole notion of podcasting, and people who had thought, "Okay, I'm just going to start writing a blog post." Right? Amazing. And again, so much energy and so much creativity that exists in our profession, and people finding their voice in a variety of ways was pretty fabulous.
Tom, I am so excited that you are on the show. I'm thrilled that we get a lot longer in the show to be able to dive into all the things that you're doing. But I really just do appreciate your constant commitment to
Yeah.
connecting people and getting real content out there because we are all dedicated to learning. So incredibly powerful. I do want to say good morning to everybody here. Thank you for slowly waking up for us. We know it's bright and early as Tom and I are on the central time zone and West Coast time zone. We are very aware that it is early for all of you, but we're thrilled to be able to bring you some good dialogue and be a part of getting your day started. Tom, before we transition here, it's Thursday. We're going to head into a segment we call Brainstorm Bank, which is an opportunity that we kind of open up to our community and say, hey, is there any way for us to brainstorm with you? Do you have any questions we can discuss? This is also when we get into our weekly theme. And I know you specifically are an expert in trauma that I would love to dive into and support our community and ensuring that we are doing everything we can for our students that are experiencing trauma. Before we do all that, though, we do have a moment every morning where we like to take a little inventory of what we are grateful for. Shout out to Happy Feed, which is an app that we love to support. It's a free app that we encourage all teachers, all educators in our community to utilize, where they can document a moment of gratitude. What I really love about this, Tom, is there's a lot of ways to document gratitude in the world. We like this one right now because it's kind of fun to be able to revisit these memories. The app has a feature where you can shake your phone and it will give you a random memory back in the day that you've submitted that you can revisit and have some chuckles about. And so obviously under your daily drop-in, we're trying to kind of curate our list of things that we're grateful for so we can go back and revisit this over the years. Tom, if I had to ask you, something that you are grateful for, maybe something that comes to mind, what would that be this morning?
Oh boy, one of the greatest joys of my life is being a grandpa, right? So
Mm.
yesterday, grandson Bodie came over, and Bodie he's 5 years old, so he's still in preschool, but he's ready to start kindergarten. Just fabulous. He is already, as a 5 year old, become very creative in terms of telling what he calls his Pete and Joe stories, and he just randomly makes up these fabulous Pete and Joe stories, and he'll just start riffing on Pete and Joe and tell you stories. Yesterday, I was working with another district, and he loves to come in when I am Zooming with people, and he'll GI Joe crawl across the floor and be looking up every once in a while and say, "Grandpa, can they see me? Can they see me?" And so every time when I get a little down, I get this mental picture of Bodie crawling across the floor just because he wants to be close, right? So,
I love
yeah,
it.
listen, it's a fabulous idea that every day we have something to be grateful for, right?
Absolutely.
Every day there exists some positive. Yesterday at the end of the day, I went for a run. And as soon as I got maybe half a mile into the run, the heavens opened up. I got so wet, but at the end of it, I recorded one of my minute musings to say, look at, you know what? Like, I got to get outside, right? I got to get
Mhm.
away from my screen. I got to be out enjoying nature, fresh air, liquid sunshine. What have we had, to be grateful for every
Mm.
day?
Such a good reminder and a great recommendation from a former guest on Daily Drop In who uses this app. And it's so fun to be able to kind of document along with our community here. I know so often we talk about this moment of gratitude here on the Daily Drop In, and we have members of our community commenting like, "Oh, I'm on day 21. I'm on day 4, getting ready to document these moments of gratitude." So it's always fun to be able to take those intentional moments. And for me, a lot of this appreciation for gratitude was always something I understood, but it was something that I never knew how to turn into an intentional moment in my day. I really value any application, although we love to celebrate Happy Feet here. Any application that allows us to revisit those memories to me gives us a great action step because now it's not only about gratitude, it's not only about this action step of looking at an idea and actually doing something with it, but then being able to revisit these moments of success always is a feel good for me.
Yeah, and you know what? Listen, we all know we can anticipate we're going to go through some hard spots. I need those recollections. I need those memories. I need something to get me through right now because it is that low point, right? And it's not always just a cup of coffee. Sometimes that helps. That silly TV commercial where somebody comes up and gives you a Snickers bar. I'd love it. Look, I'm not opposed to receiving chocolate, but it doesn't always work. But having that memory, having that capacity to go back to dig in and say, wait a minute now, what put a smile on my face last Thursday? Oh, that's right. It was when I got to spend some time with Ray and we hung out with a bunch of colleagues and right.
I love it. Tom, we're going to transition here into our brainstorm bank. We'll be right back. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being a part of our daily drop-in morning show. We love seeing the comments and hearing your thoughts, especially in this segment. Although we love it all the time, Brainstorm Bank is an opportunity that we put into our show every single morning, whether you are watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, or LinkedIn, to just ask our community, hey, friends, do you need anything? We love to be here to brainstorm with you. And while Tom and I definitely don't promise to have the answer to every single dilemma happening in our school buildings, we really do want you to understand that education is a collaborative community. And we are always here to at least brainstorm and maybe point you in the right direction. Tom, this is also a time where we have an opportunity to discuss a theme. And our theme this week is all about taking information, taking data that we have, and actually turning it into action steps. There's been a lot of reflection this week around sometimes we have an enormous amount of data, but we don't really know what to do with it, or an enormous amount of curated survey information that nobody actually takes into change. And so, with your background in supporting educators to better support students in trauma, I can only imagine that you have looked through a lot of data and actually helped students and families and teachers make this transition into action steps to overcome that. Tell me a little about that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate what you're saying, and I think we got to dial it right back to the very basic essence, and that is this: we do have tons of evidence on every kid in our schools today.
Mhm.
So, the primary question I think we have to ask ourselves as colleagues is this: are you gathering evidence to
Mhm.
make plans, or are you gathering evidence to make excuses? And I think
Ooh.
when it starts to stray into making excuses, oh, that's why Tommy can't read. He comes from, right? No, no. Look, I understand. If you're a kindergarten teacher and on day one of class, you hold up a book and that's the first time a child's seen a book, I get that it's harder to make that child a proficient reader. I don't
Mhm.
believe it's impossible to. We
Mhm.
have evidence. What do we do with that evidence? Right? If
Mhm.
all we're going to do with the evidence is make excuses, start to put labels on kids, right? Go back to my mantra: every student's a success story waiting to be told. I
Mhm.
happen to believe every kid has a unique talent, a unique gift that will allow them to make a valuable, viable adult contribution. So when we start to look at any area, and as I was sharing with you earlier, doing a lot of work right now on trauma,
Mhm.
not because of the pandemic. Let's be clear. Trauma was occurring long before, will occur long after. We know we've got world events going on right now that are trauma inducing. I did a
Mhm.
webinar the other day on trauma sensitive instruction, the new book, and I had a colleague joining from the Ukraine, a high school principal, and we engaged in a bit of a back chat, and I was trying to offer my support, and he was saying, do you have some specific ideas for what to do as a result of the trauma of war? And it's like, wow, right? But that
Mhm.
reach out. So what do we know? We have evidence. What's the evidence telling us? Things that we need to do. So when it comes to something like trauma, we know that kids are experiencing uniqueness. And the thing about trauma is what may be traumatic for you, Ray, might not be for me, or vice versa,
Mhm.
right? So we know that the impact is a little bit different. So how do we gather that evidence to make some plans that start to address the uniqueness of each kid?
Mm. As we get into this dialogue this morning, friends, I want to encourage you to share what you are learning today, whether it be quoting something that you love that Tom says. I know Lori in the comments wrote in mic drop. She loved what you shared as we got into this segment. I want to encourage you all to take those tidbits of learning and share them in a post of wherever you're tuning in. So if you're listening on Facebook, click that share button, add a little quote to your post, and share that out so we can ensure that we continue to support all of our friends and colleagues that we are connected to in our networks. Tom, I know that I want to get into some actionable suggestions that you have for people that are all across the world striving to support students, but I want to hear a little bit more about why this became a passion space for you. Obviously, you were asked to serve in a classroom that you felt ill prepared for, but why
Yeah.
was this something that you stayed in? You could have looked for another job your third year of teaching and not looked back and continue to be a chemistry fan in the high school space.
Exactly. No, and it's an interesting one. You look back on that, as I said, these hinge points that have occurred in your career, and there had to be something that was sort of moving me in that direction, right? And when I look back on it now, I recognize it was absolutely the right direction for me. Part of it's
Mhm.
my own background. I mean, I grew up a child of poverty, a child of abuse, a child of neglect. I was one of 8 children. I've lost 4 of my siblings to the ravages of drugs, alcohol, consumption. And so, there was always something in the back of my head that reminded me, right? I know teachers invested in me. I wasn't always worthy of that investment. I can tell you quite clearly, I did a lot of things to get myself in trouble early on. I'm not sure every one of those teachers who invested in me saw the benefit of their investment, as happens for a lot of our colleagues. Listen, the changes that propel a child forward may not happen on your watch, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be investing, right? There's a Chinese proverb that loosely translated says, the one that plants the tree rarely gets to enjoy its shade. And that's
Yeah.
so true for us in education, but we got to keep planting. It might not happen on your watch, but boy, when I look back now on those teachers who invested in me, that's part of what I'm trying to pay back now. And so there was something there that said, look, you got to go this route. This is your calling. This is what you are meant to do and be. Um, listen, not unlike a lot of the listeners here today, we all have our demons that we continue to battle day by day, right? That's the way it goes. But that investment that we make as educators, we are in such a unique profession. I mean, you get to shape your communities. I don't know of any other profession that gets that capacity that we get.
So powerful. You're getting a lot of love in the comments of people very eager to learn more and be better in this space, because we know that it is so relevant to the students that we are supporting right now, and the teachers we're supporting right now. If you needed to identify kind of like your best strategy to get started being better in this area, what would it be? I know Lori is talking about doing a book study. I know, a lot of educators are looking at different communities they can join for support. I know a lot of educators are in your network because they want to learn from you in this area. But what's actually a step that you feel like educators can begin taking to be better in this space?
Yeah. So, one of the things we talked about earlier was this whole notion of relationships, right? And so everything we can do to foster positive relationships. So, my favorite activity to do is the DNA activity. Now, DNA, obviously resonates with me because I was a biology chemistry teacher, but it's not that DNA. It's DNA that I've defined as the D stands for dreams, the N stands for needs, and the A stands for abilities. So, do we know every student's DNA? And it's a wonderful activity to do with all of your students where you sit there and build out, have them identify their DNA. Now, let me tell you, during round one, there's not a lot of kids in schools today been asked what their dreams are, but every kid has dreams. You don't have a student in school today who is dreaming about being unemployed or unloved or uneducated or in jail or addicted. They all have big dreams. Their needs oftentimes are driven by the environment they grow up in. When I go to work with schools, I talk about when kids come to school, they're coming to our house. It's the only house over which we have control over. Let's stop lamenting what's going on in the other house they live in. Let's stop setting up that conflict. So their needs sometimes could be driven by the other house they live in. But when they come to our house, we're prepared to guarantee there'll be a reader and a writer and a mathematician and a self-regulator. They'll learn about their special talents, unique gifts. So their needs start to drive. And then the abilities, it's amazing the abilities kids have, right? As unique as the kids themselves. I watched the Summer Olympics and I was fascinated by the women's skateboarding, where the podium was populated by two 14-year-olds and a 16-year-old. Kids in school today who are the best in the world, right? So we talk about abilities. My goodness, every kid has it. So do you know every kid's DNA, their dreams, their needs, their abilities? I'm working with some schools now, and I've got probably, over 1,000 schools now doing this. Some schools I've been working with for a number of years, they've kept the students' DNA in a portfolio longitudinally. So I got Ray's DNA when she was in kindergarten, then in grade 1, then in grade 2, then in grade 3. And how have things changed? And by the way, as a group of adults impacting that kid's life, what have we done to shift some of their DNA? Why is it that little Tom is now interested in science? Oh, because we did a little unit on and he got fascinated by, right? I've got some schools that have kept it now. When the kid transitions to the next school, they're giving them their DNA book. So they've got their 6 years of elementary school. They're going up to the middle school with their DNA book. Let's keep it going, right? So to me, that's a great takeaway activity. Really easy to do. We can do it during the course of the year. We can continue to reference it to see how today's learning shifted your DNA, right? Yeah.
I am such a fan of those suggestions that truly we can take today and do
Yeah.
them later in our classrooms, or plan a very special opportunity for us to do it later this week. I would love to challenge our family here to consider doing this DNA test with students. You're getting a lot of green hearts, Tom, and green hearts in our community means that people are appreciate what you're saying, advocating for the work that you're doing, and there is a lot of green hearts going in and talking about the passion of deciding to do a DNA test on students. I think this is such a easy and simple activity that can develop into such a powerful discussion here. I think that's so incredible. If anyone willing this morning is listening, thinking through their DNA of students, I'd love to hear about people's own DNA. Even if you just want to share of the DNA components, maybe just the D this morning, trying to share a component of your dreams. But love seeing that people are really resonating with an action step that does not seem overwhelming, but seems incredibly useful for us to better serve our students, Tom. So
Yeah.
powerful.
No, Ray, and you've just hit on something. The other thing I've done with a lot of schools is, so for the adults, what's your DNA? We
Yes.
we start to view ourselves through the roles we play. Right? When I started off teaching, as I said, I was a high school science teacher. And assigned to a high school science teacher is all of these mental images. Oh, you must be this. You're a bit of an academic. You're a bit of a, right? And we get these valued statements made. The next year, I went to severe behavior, an entirely different set of value statements. I almost went from being this really nerdy scientist to being this dropout, this mental imagery that people had, where on one day they could talk to me about all this highfalutin stuff, and the next day they had to talk in small syllable words because I was in special education, right? So what do we know about our colleagues' dreams, needs, and abilities, right?
So
Maybe
powerful.
yeah,
I can't wait to see people's DNA evaluations. I'd
yeah,
love to have our community here challenge each other to share their DNA. The more we know about one another, the more we
yeah.
know about our students, the better we're going to be able to serve our communities. And Tom, you've been a school leader for many, many years, supporting thousands and thousands of educators. Now we're looking at our teachers and saying, how can I better serve my community? Well, I can understand them better. I love beginning with this DNA test. This is such a valuable takeaway. I love it.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Dan, as I said, the more we learn, the more we can start to shape things, the more we can make the references back to, hey, kids, thinking about your DNA. So, what did last week's instruction, what did last week's lessons, what did last week's experiences help you with?
Mm.
Right. And the more we get it to be an authentic, not just an activity we did once, right? But that we took it beyond that and started to build out. I think you're cooking with gas when you get that happening.
Yeah, no kidding. Tom, we've been able to touch on just a few of your passions today. One of which I love your celebration of finding like actual action steps that we can begin to take to be better in this area. If you had to identify your soapbox message, right? Right. The message that if people are just tuning in right now, 30 plus minutes in, and they're only going to stay for a few moments, what do you hope that they take away this morning? Do you have a little suggestion, tidbit, or direction you'd love to challenge our educators with?
Yeah, as I said, this notion that every student is a success story waiting to be told. So,
Mm,
do we look at every kid who crosses the threshold, as I mentioned earlier, when they come to our house? Do we look at every kid as being on the way?
mm,
Right? Do we have the evidence that we've gathered that should help to shape the unique path for that
mm,
child? Or do we get caught up in the busy, the ranking and sorting? Right? The big question I think for all of us as educators is this: are we about the learning or are we about the earning? Right? It's just
mm,
one letter. But I tell you, when we focus on the learning, then I want to gather evidence. I want to do the DNA. I want to know about any other um, assessment evidence gathering vehicles we have and what we do with that to believe that. Is every kid, when they come to your school, are they unconditionally accepted for who they are? Do they
mm,
have a belief that school is an opportunity versus school being a sentence,
mm,
right? Do we look at school as a 13-year experience, or do we look at it as a series of 10-month experiences? Grade
mm,
3 occurs in this 10-month segment. It doesn't. It's part of the 13-year journey that will prepare you to be making valuable, viable adult contributions. So,
mm.
the belief that every student's a success story to me is what still drives me. Listen, I bet, Ray, that some of the folks tuning in this morning, they probably have this situation, that kid in their class whose greatest gift is when that kid walks into the room, they light up the room,
Mm.
right? That everyone wants to be around them. They just make it. Isn't that who we want in every hospitality industry job, every service related? Look, we all go for our cup of coffee in the morning. I bet everybody has a favorite coffee spot. And
Yep.
I bet it's equally driven by the people that work there, right?
So true.
You walk in and they say, "Hey, Ray, how you doing? Here's your cup of joe." They know exactly what you want in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
They remember the story the last time you were in. "Hey, you know what? I'm just going off to, well, how did it go? Hey, how was your trip to?" Wow, right?
Yeah.
We got kids that have that skill. It's a skill.
Mm-hmm.
That we let them know that it's a viable skill, that there is a future for you in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the belief that every student's a success story waiting to be told, and our jobs over the years, sometimes we're the co-author, sometimes we're the critic, sometimes we're the illustrator, sometimes we're the reader, but we're
Mm-hmm.
helping them to tell their story.
I'd love to have our community this morning. We talk about sharing a moment of gratitude earlier in the show. Tom, I'd love to have people in our community that are live with us as we're streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and LinkedIn. Type in a quick comment, one location, one spot that they go where they get that feeling of walking in, feeling seen, acknowledged. And I love your examples, the people there knowing who you are, knowing something special about you, remembering something. My hope is that we all have maybe a few different spaces that we get to enter into that gives us that feeling. Maybe we walk in our school building every day and the school secretary is just getting ready to get started for the day, and a good morning message is shared, and maybe there's a follow-up question about something special. I love the coffee shop example. I mean, in truth, Tom, I hope some of our community here feels like Daily Drop-In is a safe space to be able to come in and comment. Everybody who's actually commented this morning, I have many stories to be able to celebrate of them, and we love being able to give shout outs and not only say good morning, but say good morning with intentionality, whether it's celebrating Erin's book or saying hello to Nikki, who's getting started in her day at a middle school this morning, or being able to see, Brian, who was on Daily Drop-In yesterday, or Jamie Flower White, who was featured in 12 Hour on Saturday, or Lori, who is working on a podcast idea. I mean, these are such valuable spaces where as you walk in, feeling that you are seen. I love this connection to how we make students feel in the classroom.
Yeah, that whole notion of community. Remember that old TV series Cheers, right?
Yes.
Whenever Norm would walk into the bar and everybody would go, "Norm!" Right? That was community. That was a sense of belonging, a
Mm-hmm.
place where people know me and I can be me, right?
Yeah.
That, and as I said, we know we've got colleagues, we got kids in schools. That's a gift. Let's
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge that gift. Let's have that belief that, and the more we create these spaces, like I said, that every kid feels unconditionally accepted when they come to our house. It's
Mm-hmm.
awesome.
I love it. So powerful. As we continue, friends, please keep sharing those safe, fun spaces with us. We love to celebrate the places in your world that help you feel seen. And I love this connection to the same vein of how we can make our students feel every single day as they walk in the school building, as they walk in our classrooms, as they continue to learn in our communities. Tom, there's been so much shared. I'm so thrilled that our show is not over. We still have more to dive into, but we are going to transition here into some good news and some holidays. So we'll be right back. Good morning, everyone. If you are just tuning into the Daily Drop-In this morning, 40 minutes in, we want to say good morning. We appreciate you, and you've missed a lot. So if you go back, make sure after the live show, whether you're listening on Teach Better Talk podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review so we can continue to reach more listeners. Or if you're just catching this after the fact on YouTube, or maybe it was shared somewhere on Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn, we appreciate that you're here. We love that you're tuning in with us. And there has been some major takeaways with some great suggestions on things that we can do today to be better in education, to be better for our students, and to just be a better learner. So thank you to those of you who are choosing to tune in and take some action steps, not only to be a consumer, but an active learner in this experience. Tom, you have shared so much with us thus far. I would love to celebrate a little bit with some good news and some holidays. Are you willing to celebrate some holidays with us?
Absolutely.
Always good to celebrate holidays. March has been a heavy month thus far. We are 3 days in, and the holidays are in abundance. The opportunities we have to celebrate are great. Have you had anything major to celebrate, or maybe today we'll have a new suggestion for you?
No, I'm looking forward to the suggestions. Obviously, we're all getting geared up for St. Patrick's Day, but
Yes.
that's a separate little sort of going forward. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to hearing more.
I love it. Here in our community, I know we have a lot of birthdays going on. Actually, our Teach Better birthday, we are turning 7 years old is later this month. We'll be releasing some special details next week about all that fun. But here in the Teach Better community, we're celebrating that proposals are open for educators to share their voice at the Teach Better conference. That is something that you can all learn more about at teachbetterconference.com to be able to share your ideas. Tom, there are also some wacky holidays going on, one of which that I know everybody, I'm sure, doesn't really think much about. But today is the national day to celebrate that some of our pets have thumbs. I don't know that that would be a holiday I would know to celebrate.
No, I feel bad. I didn't get a card.
I know. Had we known, we could have gotten something to
Yeah,
celebrate. The pictures of a dog holding up his paw. And dogs do have thumbs, but just a little bit of a different thumb than I'm used to. But
yes,
still worth celebrating.
we'll
It's also
celebrate.
World. It's also World Wildlife Day. It's celebrating the many flavors of ice cream day. It's also Canadian Bacon Day. Tom, are you a fan of Canadian bacon?
Listen, and up here in Canada, come on, that's one of our staples. So I think I'm going to have to make sure that's featured on my breakfast this morning.
Exactly. I want to challenge each and every one of you, regardless of where you're located in the world, get some Canadian bacon. Why not? For those of you who those of you who eat pork, it's a perfect way to get your little dose of bacon this morning. I love it. It's also Japan Dolls Festival today. So for those of you who have members in your community who might be celebrating, that would be a wonderful one to learn more about. It's also it's also National Anthem Day. So those in the US celebrating the national anthem would be something special. National Cold Cuts Day, National Day of Hospitality, and I Want You to Be Happy Day. What a good day to celebrate.
It's an awesome day.
I love it. It
I find it
continues.
interesting that
Go ahead.
National I Want You to Be Happy Day is also on the same day as the ice cream day because I think those two really fit well together. I mean, if you get me ice cream, I guarantee you I'll be happy.
I totally agree. It also lands on Peach Blossom Day, which is a beautiful flower. I think flowers make us happy too. I just think these all go together quite
Yeah.
well. There are so many other holidays today, including World Hearing Day. If you are somebody that is eager to celebrate holidays, these could be good opportunities to bring them as fun facts to your students, as fun facts to your colleagues to continue to foster good discussion and relationships. So, plenty to celebrate this morning. In addition, we also have a good news article. And Tom, we use these good news articles to build us up throughout our day, or even to bring them to our colleagues and students as kind of fun facts. I really appreciated this one with everything going on in the world today. I thought this was such an interesting little bit of information. It says here in the headline, knowing a bit about the personal information about your neighborhood police officers reduces crime by almost 10% alone. So, a simple social experiment that was created by a psychologist in a few different communities, especially in New York City's, looked into the correlation about our neighborhoods knowing more about our police officers on a personal level actually reduced our crime rate by almost 10% in every community that the study was conducted in. And it says a secret to this is obviously being able to earn respect and knowing the humanity behind the incredible work being done in our police departments. That they were looking at a number of different communities in New York, and they were able to sustain this survey as they continue to curate this data and wanting to find more ways for our communities to be in partnership with our police stations. What are your thoughts on that, Tom?
Well, I think it really speaks to this whole notion of connection, right? And the more we connect, the more we find out about each other.
Mhm.
Listen, it's the same thing for us in schools, right? I have yet to meet a kid who's connected who disappoints. So
Hmm.
why is it that the child in Ray's class will bust through walls to perform for Ray, the teacher, but comes to Tom's class and Tom just harps on the kid's deficits, right? The kid who likes to doodle in class drives me crazy, and you're fascinated by it. Well, no
Mhm.
small wonder when the kid comes to your class, they can't wait to arrive there. And by the way, it has little to do with content. It has to do with the human relationship. So, not
Mhm.
surprising that if we start to humanize police officers, that we see them as people rather than as a role, that it
Mhm.
breaks down that barrier. It's the same thing for us in schools. When we start to see, I've taken the toughest kids in grade 6 and I've had them become reading buddies for the kindergarten kids. You know
Mhm.
what the kindergarten kid sees? They see their reading buddy. They don't see the tough kid who causes grief in the school, right?
Mm.
We've got to try and break through, humanize those relationships and make those connections. I think that's what that's speaking to for me.
So powerful. And so whether we do this at a classroom level, a building level, a neighborhood level, a community level, being aware of those around you, those who support and live in our communities, I think is so important. I love this emphasis of relationships. I think it goes along with so many things we've already discussed, but I know personally moving into a new neighborhood over the last year or so, it's been incredible getting to know the many types of people that live in my community and being able to be thankful for all that they contribute. I'm very fortunate to live right next door to an incredible police officer in my community, and her dedication and mindset and love for wanting to keep everybody in the safest environment possible, I think is just so admirable. I love this mission, and maybe a little bit of a challenge this morning, that if you're not aware of your local police department or anybody else that is servicing your community, this is an opportunity to foster that relationship. So
Yeah,
important.
and you're right, Ray. I think it's every role, right? The person who comes and collects your trash in the morning. What do you know about them? Would you stop and
Yes.
say good morning to them? We've got some neighbors here in my little neighborhood. I live in a very small community, but
Mhm.
some of the neighbors will leave a can of soda on the top of their trash bin, right? And you could just, well, these are people too, right? They're doing a different job in our communities. You want to talk about important jobs? Be in a town when there's a garbage strike on. We know who's important, right?
Yes.
Do we honor and acknowledge all the different people? So as much as I love to receive that
Mhm.
great good morning greeting when I go to the coffee shop, I've also got
Mhm.
to be conscious of the fact I should be delivering those as well, right? I
Mhm.
have the capacity to make their day just like they're making mine.
Mm. Tom, this has been one of my favorite daily drop in conversations. I have loved being able to learn more about you personally, but also just bring our community this insight that you are so dedicated to sharing. Our daily drop in morning shows are not only an opportunity to wake up with our community and get the day started on a positive note, but also introduce new friends into our network so we can all continue to be learners. I think that I feel very confidently that you are somebody that every single person in our network needs to add to their list so we can continue to learn and stay connected. Would you mind sharing how our community can stay connected to you?
Yeah, sure. Social media, obviously, that's the world we live in. So for Twitter, it's just first initial, last name. Facebook, LinkedIn, um, TikTok is all just first name, last name. Those are all the areas that I can explore. Gmail, if people want to shoot me a message, just thierk@gmail.com. I try to get back to colleagues within 24 hours. There's so much sharing. Yeah, and listen, you got to know that when you reach out, I'm going to reach back and pick your brain because I know you can add value to me just as much as you think I might be able to add value to you.
Mm. Tom, I so appreciate you. I so appreciate your passion for connecting with people and also your dedication to ensuring that we are all better and learners in so many areas of education. I so appreciate you waking up so early on the West Coast to be able to celebrate Daily Drop-In with us. And I know this won't be the end because I will not let our connection go away. But thank you so much for being on the show this morning.
Oh man, what a treat! Well worth getting up early and just the opportunity. And it is. It's like a jolt of caffeine, Ray. Just hanging out with you and getting energized by you and by the team. So I appreciate you reaching out and giving me this opportunity.
So wonderful. For everybody here this morning, we hope you enjoy your last few sips of coffee as you're brushing your teeth, getting ready for the school day. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for what you do for students. Thank you for what you do for our communities. If you need anything, please feel free to reach out. And as you know, the Teach Better team is committed in so many ways to continue to celebrate all of you this month and many moving forward. So please stay connected by following us and obviously visiting teachbetter.com for information. Have a wonderful rest of your Thursday. Please go connect with Tom, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.